UK MPs pass assisted dying bill, signalling shift in end-of-life debate. So British MPs are approving the assisted dying bill, which marks a significant change in the parliamentary discourse, focusing more on safeguards and less on moral objections, potentially leading to new end-of-life choices with stricter protections. So MPs displayed respect and thoughtfulness during the debate, emphasising safeguards in the bill rather than philosophical arguments against assisted dying. The bill only applies to individuals with progressive illnesses likely to lead to death within 6 months, with stringent requirements for voluntary requests and criminal penalties for coercion. The proposed legislation introduces a choice with stronger safeguards compared to existing end-of-life decisions, aiming to protect vulnerable individuals from undue influence. More than 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. 90% sounds crazy. Just to be clear as well, with palliative care, that doesn't mean they're all dying and are in a bad way. That just means that 90% of them are having side effects of illness or having some kind of pain and need that eased through palliative care. Not necessarily that 90% of that 530,000 are dying.
Palliative care is end of life care, right? So whether they've got a few days, few weeks, few months, that's when they go into.
Palliative care can also apply if you've broken your arm and you need some or you've got like an illness that you may recover from, but you still need help whilst you've got the pain.
Talking about palliative end of life care.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference between.
I think when you go into palliative care, right, you're end of life. It's end of life care.
It's basic. I mean, to summarise this is basically like semi-approving euthanasia or being able to say, right, I've had enough, pull the plug, and you can do that.
90%. So we're saying like 530,000 people dying. Wait, maybe I'm reading this wrong. More than 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. So 90% of 530,000.
So it's basically saying that 90% resource could be saved if they could just go
kill them. That's fucked, isn't it? That's a lot of people. Like you'd think that's a lot of people.
Same mind. It's not for people who are like for age of death. I think it's like if you've got terminal cancer and you're in a state of mind and you want to end it, and it's about giving people control at the end of their life. So if they feel like if I was mid-40s,
I completely agree. I just the sheer number of people this could affect is high.
Yeah, but I think this is slightly. This metric at the bottom. So 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. Palliative care is typically when someone's non-responsive, but pretty much most people die non-responsive for a period of time. That period of time might be 2 minutes. That period of time might be 2 years. So it's not. I think that needs to be quantified with resources, time, rather than, because that percentage isn't accurate. It's like saying
53,000 people die basically through accidents, and 90% of people die from palliative, whether it's through cancer or old age or from a life critical illness.
Yeah, but I'm saying that palliative care could be 1 minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So is it 90% of cases, 90%, but a better metric would be 90% of the total resource expenditure. Proportionally, what amount is that per case? Which is probably weighted on a lower ratio, right? So it's probably like 20-30%.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 40% of that as an example, 500,000 people actually go into palliative care for a reasonable amount of time and use that resource, and it could have been handled differently.
What do you think, though? Yes or no answer. Do you think we should have assisted dying in the UK, just from a moral perspective? I'll happily say yes, we should.
Yeah, I think yes.
So which is funny, isn't it? Like, because it's become quite controversial, but it's like we all agree.
It's because people argue that it's suicide, and that's the difference. It's people say that where does categorizing suicide or abortion come into euthanasia? And they're three extremely different topics that have to have a lot of care and parameters discussed in each of the topics, but can't be coupled with them, and that's the main problem.
And regulatory reform to this kind of issue should be very stringent. It shouldn't be that we can pass it now and then they can just relax the rules later, like under non-parliamentary means. Like, it should always be that you want to relax them rules, you come back through the public again. Otherwise, you could end up having young people want to commit suicide or have, I don't know, could just become a slippery slope.
I think it's probably one of almost the most difficult things to legislise and process in the world. Like, at what point and how and when does someone? So, for an example, my grandfather had really bad, had dementia. Unfortunately, passed away in December, and you could kind of argue by the point of his death there wasn't any of him there. But then, my mum didn't really care about that. She just loved seeing him, even if he was there or not, just with the hope that he's happy. So it's almost like, but then if you probably spoke to him in his good health, he'd probably be like, I wouldn't want to live like that. So then where do it's extremely difficult. It's probably the most grey area thing I think you can try and install. It's so subjective. It's so emotion. Decision. The hardest decisions are when there's more emotion than logic, and this is a lot of it is pure emotion.
They'll need to make it clear that if someone is about to go into that state, that they have to sign some kind of waiver.
Well, the rules are is two doctors that both agree that that person is in a state of mind to take it, and they've got to take it themselves. They've got to take the tablet or whatever they've got to do. So there's a clear line. I think they got that right. But if you're not, if you're in palliative care, you're past that point. So you just got to see out the life now because you've signed over your power of attorney to the doctors.
But I think to make the decision to when you're in palliative care to go down the euthanasia end of life route, you have to be in sane mind before signing that disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. It's more, I think, if you're in a sane, if you know you've got to be within 6 months of the end of life as well. I think that's the rules. So you've got to be 6 months. You know it's going to happen, and you want to take control of your last dignity in it, and just take the tablet and finish your life on your terms.
Yeah, we went to someone's birthday the other day as a family, and my mum was telling me that it was at a golf course. And my mum was telling me the last time she was at that golf course, she went there for a wedding of a couple. They're in like 30s, and the guy was basically terminally ill, and they had a wedding to celebrate his life and to get married. And then a week later, he died. And when you think about examples like that, you just think, it's horrific. And then I also remember a friend of mine, his dad's so like proud of like health. He just sort of said, if I ever start going the wrong way, just drop me off at the seaside. And he basically said, I'll just charge into the sea. So a lot of people, it's proudness. A lot of people, it's worrying about the resource. A lot of people, it's just probably ending, pain or potential pain. But I suppose once you're palliative, I don't, who knows if you feel pain.
We've all had a loved one go through that. Those last sometimes be 6 months, sometimes be 3 years of just like debilitating, almost humility for them, where they're in permanent care or they're in pain, they can't really move, and they just deteriorate into nothing. And there's some people who probably would rather that course, but I reckon, like if I think of my Nana's situation or my Grampy's situation, I reckon certainly Grampy, who got confined to a wheelchair, and his wife having to look after him right until the point he got into care and like then sort of debilitating down. I'm sure in that scenario, people would opt to end it earlier to preserve dignity. And that is maybe a right we should have. But I think it can get coerced. And I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to bring this through, and there's going to be these examples of coercion for people who want the estate a bit quicker. They want the inheritance a bit quicker. They want this and that, these naughty scenarios.
Yeah, but the right isn't for the family to make the decision. It's the person who wants to die, and you've got to be in the same mind, and you've got to have two doctors that will confirm it. So that should put a block into,
as long as the doctors can't be corrupted, and as long as they don't relax the rules around it and shit. You just know what happens when this stuff, if it's not like there's no public pressure on it, it can become quite loose and a bit naughty. But we'll see. Hopefully not. If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you go and subscribe to the Ground Up Podcast.